Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Ann Dolin, and today we have our very first coffee and conversation. And we're specifically talking about motivation, especially this time of year. I know as a classroom teacher, I always saw a dip in my kids come May. It was just always a thing. Kids' motivation kind of waned as the end of school approached, and they were excited for summer. But as parents, we have this added layer of having to homeschool our kids. And we all feel like right now, motivation is really a big issue that we want to tackle to, number one, make sure our kids end the year strong and muster that last bit of motivation, and then carry some semblance of mastery and inertia into the summer so that they can keep learning. So the purpose of this call today is really a conversational one. We're going to talk about how we as educators motivate kids. We're going to talk about how you as parents can help along the way. And then I have a special guest with me today, Allison Sibley, who's a therapist. She's a PhD. And she's going to talk about, from a psychological perspective, how we can help our kids move along. So I hope that sounds good to you. We have a really small group, which is awesome. So if at any time you want to ask a question, you can either type it in the chat, or when we open it up for questions after we've all talked a little bit, that's going to be a free flow conversation. So for now, I ask that everybody mute themselves if you don't mind, and you can either say on video, you don't have to, it's completely up to you. Put any questions right now in a chat. And then again, after I finish talking, and Jan, and then Allison will open it up just for a deeper dive conversation. So many of you, I have met you along the way. Again, my name is Ann Dolin. I'm the president and founder of Educational Connections. I started the business in 1998 after being a classroom teacher in Fairfax County. I was a special education teacher and a general education teacher. Back then they called it a learning disabilities teacher. And it was always interesting to me how kids that I worked with struggled with motivation, and some more than others. And some were perfectly smart. They had all the intellectual capabilities, but they didn't always muster that oomph to get going and sustain their effort through the year. We know now through lots of research that kids actually need three things to be motivated academically. They need competence, and in another word, we call it mastery, and that's the ability to know that they can actually do the work. Sometimes if kids really feel defeated, like they don't like math and it feels really hard for them, they're going to experience motivational issues with math, although they may not have it with other subjects. We also know the second factor is called relatedness. And relatedness means that, do they see the reason they have to do this? Why do I have to know the Pythagorean theorem? Or I'm never going to need this in real life. I don't know if you've ever heard that from your kids. Raise your hand if you have. I know I've heard that from my kids. And the thing is, it's hard to answer that question, because sometimes you have to know it because one skill builds upon another. So for kids that don't always see the point of why they have to know something, but they know that they need to do a good job in this subject to go on to the next one, or even that these grades count as they get older and they want to go on to college, even if they don't love the material, that can be a sense of relatedness. And then the last one is autonomy. And kids want to feel independent, and they want to feel that they can do the work to some degree on their own. And that's why we often see our kids that need help, but then we say, oh, let me help you with that. And they're like, no, I can do it, leave me alone. And that's really that sense of autonomy. So to be really motivated, kids need all those factors. But the reality is that in our practice, Educational Connections, tutoring and test prep, we see kids of all different levels of motivation. We see kids that come to us and they're already A students, but they might have an A- in geometry and they want to have a 4.0. We also see kids that really struggle across the board, and it has nothing to do with how smart they are, but they can't muster the energy and the focus to put forth enough effort to sustain them. And typically, sometimes we say that as an issue of mastery, especially in cumulative subjects like math-based sciences, and foreign languages. Sometimes we see it as an issue of relatedness. And then sometimes we see it in the sense that kids are in power struggles over doing the work independently. So those are all things that we help with. I'm lucky today that I have our master tutor, Jan Rowe, on the call. And Jan not only tutors lots of kids within our company, and she's been with us for, I think, 6 years now. Jan is also our tutor trainer. So she works with our tutors specifically on different skills that they need to tutor kids to their very best potential. So Jan, I'd love to turn it over to you now. And I'm wondering if you can share with some of our parents out there how they can motivate, or how we motivate kids as educators.
Yes. Okay. Good morning. Thank you for everybody being here. This is great. So I'd love to share with you some things that we do to help motivate the students that we're working with. I do have to say that Zoom is wonderful for helping us interact and engage with our students. They have a couple of features that we use. The whiteboard, we're able to go on and interact with the student. They can put the work on the whiteboard and I can interact with them, and we can actually do the work right there online. And I have a student, and whenever we first started the online session, she just didn't really know if it was going to work for her being online. But what we have seen as we've been doing these online sessions is she has been more engaged, more productive, and she's actually starting to say, I feel like I'm, being a teacher. So because I feel like I'm doing a lot of the work on the whiteboard. So this is great news to have that working so well for her. All right, so we also have students that, because of the work not being required, so some of the students are just not feeling as motivated to get the work done. So what we're doing is, coming up with ways to, help keep them motivated so that we can get the skills done and we can continue to practice the skills. So I have several students that feel that way, and so they love doing math puzzles and things like that. So I'd like to share with you, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Zoom share feature, screen share. Also want to let you know that if your student has maybe some worksheets, things like that, what you can do is you can text a picture or email it to the tutor, and we can upload it into our computer, and we can use the share screen through Zoom so that we can interact with the student with the worksheet together. So it works really well, and the students really enjoy working together on the screen. All right, so I'm going to show you just a couple of things that we do to help motivate the students while we're online. And one of them, all right, one of them is the Pizzazz Worksheets. These are free, and there's thousands of them. These you can Google and put in Pizzazz, and you can get all levels of math all the way up to Algebra 2. And this, so for those students that are, not wanting to do the skill just for practice and whenever they're optional assignments, this assignment or these activities the kids enjoy quite a bit because they have a little puzzle at the bottom, and it motivates them, and they're just silly little puzzles. There's, again, all levels, and I'll show you. This one is more of a elementary. Then we also have where you're getting into the pre-algebra, algebra. They also have geometry, and on this one they can solve the problems and then shade in the answers up here at the top, and then the answer to the riddle is revealed to them. And so a lot of kids really do enjoy working their math problems with the puzzles and the riddles. Now we also have another way of motivating the students to continue with their skills, and we do that through little games. This is called Academics. You can go on here for free, and you can see right here, you can sign up for free. There's all these subjects that they can go on, and they play games with each other, or they can play individually. And what the tutor can do on screen share is I can actually watch the student playing the game, and I can see what skill they're having trouble with. And then after they finish playing the games are about 2 minutes long. After they finish playing the game, then we can take that to maybe working on that skill through a puzzle or some additional assignments. So the kids absolutely love playing the academics games. Now there's also another game site for the higher level math where you have linear equations, and this is Mega High. And again, this one you could go on and play the games for free as well. And these are integers. They have linear equations. So some of the higher level math, the students enjoy working on here. And you can also, as of right now, you can go on and play these games for free also. Okay, another site that I use that my kids enjoy, you may already be familiar with, is IXL. I absolutely love IXL. Most of my students absolutely love IXL because they have so many little features in IXL that's motivating. They give awards out for getting to certain levels in the work that they're doing. It also shows them what they've done and what they still need to work on. It's also very helpful for parents and for the tutors because you can focus in on what skills they need. And then you can have additional practice on there. It goes all the way up to 12th grade, and they also have Spanish on here. So it's about $10 a month if you want to get a subscription to this. You can do a couple of them for free. I also want to say that I have quite a few of my students have IXL over the summer because it's a great program to be working with over the summer because they have little programs in IXL to motivate the kids to get things, to continue to practice over the summer. So I absolutely love IXL. And then I'd like to share with you one more that I love to use to motivate kids for writing. Some of the students get the assignments with, just write about anything you want to write about. And so that can be difficult for a lot of kids, and they are not motivated to do that writing. So I have a student that's similar to that. And so whenever we started using John Spencer, and I'm going to show you his, if you go onto YouTube and you put in John Spencer writing prompts, there are so many little 1 minute, 2 minute videos to get them motivated to do some writing. And so they're just awesome. And I want to show you just a little clip of one. And every student that I show it to, they just absolutely love it. So I'll just show you a little clip. All right. And this is another feature that you should be able to hear through Zoom, that we are able to share our sound.
You walk past an abandoned building one day when you notice a ticket on the ground. So you pick it up, and the front doors fly open, revealing an empty movie theater. At first it seems normal, but then something happens and you realize it's magical. Now imagine that magical movie theater. What does the theater sound like? What kinds of films do they show, and how are they magical? Who makes the movies, and how are they made? What kinds of food do they serve there? And who is their typical audience? Now, after imagining all of that, turn it into a story as if you just returned from that theater and you want to tell your best friend all about it.
So I absolutely love those. There are so many of them. You can see there's 27, but John Spencer also did more of them through, and he has it under the video writing prompts. So this is just a great way to help motivate your student to do little bits of writing also. So those are just a few things that we use as tutors that I'd love for you to know about, that you can use with your child to help motivate them throughout the summer.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan. I love that.
And I will unshare. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Those are so creative, because I know with a lot of kids that I've worked with, they can often tell me a story a mile long, but I ask them to write it down, and that's really, really hard for them. And so I love the video. That's super novel, and that prompt. How do you, as a tutor, help them to organize their thoughts and to kind of break it down so it doesn't feel overwhelming?
Yeah, a great idea, a great question, because this is something that I get quite a bit with the student. Okay, that's awesome. I love the video. Now what do I do? Because now they have so many ideas in their mind. They're like, okay, now I don't have an issue with ideas. So where do I start? So you can start, depending on the student, whatever's easier for them. Sometimes kids just want to start putting ideas on paper, and whenever we're doing it online, we can do that through the whiteboard feature, and they just start writing their ideas, everything down. Other ways that I do is I get a graphic organizer, and we put that on the whiteboard. We can actually share that. Whenever I was showing you the worksheets that that I could share, we share a graphic organizer. We can interact, and we can both write down on the graphic organizer. So they do that, and so and then we start putting it together as a story, and then doing the editing process, and it just makes it so much easier when they're able to get those little ideas, and then start looking at, okay, now where do I go from here? It just gets them so motivated to start writing and being creative.
Yeah, I love that collaboration tool on Zoom, because it does feel like you're sitting next to the child.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you've, because I've heard from parents, though, that their kids are zoomed out. Like they feel like they've been in these, some schools do it better than others, as we know. Some school districts have rolled out a really great interactive online program, others not too much. But why is it different one-to-one with the student than in like I talked to a mom who has a first grader, and the first grade teachers at her school combined all the kids. So there's 50 kids in one Zoom lesson.
Right.
She said it takes 10 minutes to call roll. It's like not that great for the kids, but it's different.
Oh, yeah. So, and I have actually been in with some of my students when they've been doing the classroom setting on Zoom and on their online sessions, and I can see there's some, real positives there, but it is difficult for the students to actually get that one-on-one help through Zoom. It's a little bit more difficult when I'm working with them one-on-one, like I was showing. Whenever we put some of the work up or the whiteboard, we can interact right just as if I'm sitting right there with them. And so they're able to ask me questions immediately. They can, as soon as they have trouble with, let's say, a math problem, I'm right there with them at the click of a mouse saying, okay, let's go ahead and make this little correction here. So when I'm working with them on one-on-one on Zoom, then it's an immediate help when we're talking and interacting and doing. Actually, I have noticed on the Zoom, though, that a lot of the kids are, more engaged because we are working, face to face on that whiteboard together. So they have been able to stay more engaged. A lot of we bring into colors, we bring into shapes, we bring a lot of things into the session that we weren't able to do sitting next to each other. So it has been, helpful for them.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan. I just saw a question. Somebody asked, what is the third factor of motivation for kids? So we said mastery or competence, which means, can you do the work? Do you feel confident and solid in your abilities to get it done? Relatedness, is it somewhat meaningful to you, or can you find the meaning behind it? And then the last one is autonomy. And autonomy means, do you feel like you have control over doing it somewhat independently? So an example of things that we can do as parents to promote autonomy would be, if we have a child who's struggling with motivation, we want to help them get started. So we want to ask maybe, what are your priorities, or what's the first thing you want to do, and make sure that they can get going on their own. But what we don't want to do is, when they're done, to check for quality, because that can really demotivate kids. If we're checking to make sure every word's spelled right or every last math problem is done correctly, that would be a demotivating factor. It's okay to check to see that they're done with it, and that you want to make sure that they've turned it in. But we can always leave quality up to teachers. And although that's a little bit harder to do right now with school online, we always leave that in my practice up to the tutor who's working with the child, because we found that kids are far more willing to do something for somebody else than their mom or dad, and they're much more willing to take feedback from somebody else too. All right, let's see if there's another question, and then I want to ask Allison a question too. All right, so Allison, you're a psychologist and you've worked with lots and lots of kids over the years, and I'm sure you've tackled this problem many times. But what would you say from a psychological perspective is important for parents to know about motivation?
Thanks, Ann. And Jan, I just want to say that I learned so much from what you just shared. I appreciate that. I mean, I come to this, I'm the director and therapist at the Sibley Group in Washington, D.C., and I've been a child and family therapist for 25 years, working with kids with, all kinds of things going on. And we do a lot of work on the interplay between academics and emotion. And what you just shared, some of those tools are amazing. And also hearing about how that's going on Zoom is really inspiring.
Oh, great.
I think about motivation from a psychological standpoint, given my background. I'm trained as a clinical social worker, and what I try to do is really think about the simple building blocks behind motivation and the few things that are helpful. One of them is the building blocks of security, because when we feel more secure, when any of us feel more secure, we feel more motivated. So we could have the skill. And so the 3 C's of security, this is taken from Stanley Greenspan, a psychologist who was in DC for many, many years. 3 C's of security are, the first one is competence, which is a direct relation to what we're looking at academically, right? What tutoring hackers. And so competence is, I have the skills. I know I can do this, right? I have the skills to do it. I know how to. Confidence is, I feel that I can do it, which is very different than I have the skills to do it. And connection is the 3rd C, and that is, I feel close to either those around me or to myself as a learner in this instance, right? I feel like a good learner, or I feel like, I'm a student, I'm in student mode, whatever that may look like, right? And so a lot of times when I'm working with kids who definitely have the competence, their testing may reveal really high IQ scores, they have math knowledge, they have this, but perhaps they're dealing with an issue like ADHD or anxiety, or, some external issue that's affecting their motivation. I go back and I just think about the 3 C's. I may not always be talking to them about it. Sometimes I am, if we're trying to give them a specific strategy. But a lot of times I'm at least thinking about what those 3 C's, and can I boost that in any way? So if we have a kid with a lot of competence who doesn't feel like they can do the work, sometimes we'll look at, well, how can I get them started on something that they ace? So they get rolling into that level of, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, which is a security. It's an attachment message, really, a security message. Or it might be, they need to feel more connected in order to feel like they can do something that they know how to do. So that's when buddying up with another student. That's when, we work on emotional regulation, which is to calm them down enough to feel like a student. So that's one piece that we do. There's another piece which we could talk a little bit more, is like emotional regulation. How do we get kids calm enough when they're upset about what's in front of them in order to do the work? I'll stop there, but that's a whole nother piece, because if we have kids that are upset like, why do I have to do this? Or I don't want to do this, and they're not calm enough, that's automatically going to derail their motivation.
Allison, someone didn't understand the third C. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure, it's connection. So connection could be how close we feel to others, right? So that in this instance, that could be how close they may feel to their classmates or their teacher. And if the virtual setting, distance learning, has affected that, I know that I've seen this with one of my sons, what can we do to boost that? You know, for instance, Jan coming in as a tutor, there's probably not just academic support that's going on there. I'm sure there's nurturing of those relationships that are already there, and thinking about who's going to be on that Zoom class, and can you look for them? Or if you're feeling nervous about getting on that Zoom class, would you perhaps, you know, come on off camera first and just listen to your friends talk about fun things? Or you build your relationship through the tutoring experience in order to feel more connected with a helper. So working, it could be parent-child connection too, which is why in this environment, the biggest piece that I have to remind myself and my family and parents that I work with is whatever we can do to hold on to the relationship in the midst of trying to help our kids with learning is the most important factor. It's very hard, but it is the most important factor. So I agree with Ann. Don't go behind and check work. Really try to just, you know, build on success and help the kids be happy with what they achieve as much as possible.
And Allison, I remember, and so just to give some context to this, Allison and I have been friends for a long time, and we have a weekly webinar series going on Wednesdays. And the first one we did was on mindset, which was great. You know, like, I don't know if anybody has a kid like this, but kind of a glass half empty kid versus a glass half full kid. And how can we help the kids that sometimes aren't as optimistic? And I really love that. I think Maria on the call said it, Allison, somebody said it in our panel, like, what are our kids going to remember in 5, 10, or 20 years about this period of time? Is it going to be filled with like heavy emotional negativity, or is it going to be that, like, it was interesting, it wasn't so bad, there were fun things about it? So I agree that preserving the relationship is our number one thing as parents.
Sure. Yeah. And one of the things we're working with all of our clients on now, because we're 100% virtual, and we feel super grateful that we're able to still see our clients virtually, even the little kids, all the way down to 4. We're doing teleplay therapy with a lot more parent involvement. But of course, we're working on the feeling side of this whole pandemic, right? And so what we know and what we've learned and what we're trying to help kids with is dealing with the emotions, and blocked emotions result in apathy and distress.
Uh-oh. Let's come back to Allison, I think.
I think maybe Ann's internet is going down.
Oops. Should I just keep going?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll keep going. So the last sentence I was saying is blocked emotions really result in apathy and distress, right? Because they're stuck. And released emotions often give us energy, and energy moves us toward motivation, right? So we do have to deal with whatever those blocked emotions, and all of us would have blocked emotions in the middle of a pandemic, right? We have too much feeling and not enough time and space, really. Creative time and space. We have a lot of time together in our homes to have a fluid process. So I guess my tip for parents on this is, without focusing too much on the negative, but just give whatever those sad, disappointing feelings are, give them airtime. If you're noticing your child is not motivated or is especially negative, try to give them enough airtime so that there can be a release into that next thing. And it could just be a creative activity that releases those feelings, could be a body break, could actually be a discussion and seeing if they can identify what feeling they're having about the assignment, or even just the experience they're having in the pandemic, so that hopefully you can release more energy.
That's wonderful, Allison. Thank you so much.
Sure, absolutely. It's my pleasure.
All right, so Nicole, are there any questions for us, or should we just keep on chatting?
Nope, there's nothing else at this time.
Okay, great. And if anybody has a question, feel free to unmute yourself right now, and it's perfectly fine just to interject and ask a question.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Ann, and I have a question about, those online classes that you're talking about, the IXL
Yes.
program. If I have a fourth grader now, it's over the summer, should he be doing fourth grade work, fifth grade work? Like, where do I start?
Oh, great question, because I get this question quite a bit from parents. When you log on to, or when you go onto IXL, they will give you all the grade levels for math. So you can start your student at fourth grade and then work them into the fifth grade. IXL has low level, like the third grade level, the fourth grade level, and the fifth grade level, all built into fourth grade. So whenever you go onto the IXL program, you can start with those skills that are in fourth grade, and then if you see that that your child's already mastered them, then you can go ahead and move on to the fifth grade skills. But I, as a tutor, I start with the fourth grade, and then I see where my student is and what skills they've mastered, and then we move up from there. So that's a great question, and you will have access to all those levels whenever you go into IXL.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And Anne, I think that's a great idea to work on math over the summer, especially in fourth grade and fifth grade. I taught fourth grade and I taught sixth grade. And what I found with math is that if kids did not have a really solid foundation in three areas, fractions, decimals, and percent, it really set them up for struggles later on. So it is those things, fractions, decimals, and percents, that are the foundation for pre-algebra and algebra 1. And it is pre-algebra and algebra 1 that are the foundations for any high school math that you take. So when we think about the summer with our kids, really working on those skills, even if we set up a store and we mark everything down, like different prices, like, this is 15% off, this is 20% off, this is 25% off, and help kids to, they play store clerk and they have to figure out the discount, is really helpful. Anytime we can do mental math, and if we play restaurant at home and they're the waitress, or they're the diner, they should be able to figure out, I'm going to give a 20% tip. Well, 10% is about this, so double that, and that's 20%. Those are all mental math fractions things that are super important for kids. And I found in working with a lot of older kids in math too, that when they don't have that strong foundation, it's really hard for them and really frustrating. So if you work on anything this summer, I would say those three areas are key.
Thank you. So multiplication, they should have just mastered that already, so that shouldn't be so much of a focus. It's the percentage, decimal, and fraction.
They should know,
right?
They should have mastery. And I don't mean like don't work on multiplication, but they really should have mastery. And it's okay to use a strategy. For example, if they don't know it super fast, they don't know 7 times 6, but they know 6 times 6 is 36, and add the next. That's okay. Ideally, they're super automatic with their facts, and that helps a lot with problem solving. So when they get more complicated problems, and this is where often we will help kids, because it's not that they don't know their facts, but they have difficulty figuring out the language behind math and looking at a math problem and really deeply problem solving. And so I'd say still work on multiplication facts, but that regurgitation of information is not the most important thing to work on over the summer.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks for the question. Anybody else like to ask a question?
We have a question about, do we have any thoughts about Duolingo? and language learning for Nordink for writing, or do you have any other tools you'd like better?
Yes. Duolingo has been, I don't work with languages, but that every student that I hear works with that they absolutely love it. No Red Ink, I thought I saw that also in there. No Red Ink is very popular. Most of the schools use No Red Ink. That's a fantastic program. I also like Newsella. If you have seen Newsella, it is a fantastic program, fantastic site you can go to. It will allow you to pull up an article, and they are, yes, exactly, Newsella, and it will allow you to change the reading level for the same article. So you will pull up the interest for the student. A lot of students love animals, so they will find an animal that, they have articles about whales. And so it will have the same article. A third grader could read it. It will change the level for you, and a 10th grader could read it, and it will change the vocabulary. They also have writing exercises in that on that site, and comprehension. So that is one of my favorites, and I'm always working on No Red Ink with the students.
Jan, can you talk a little bit about No Red Ink? And maybe you did. My internet is really terrible, and I jumped off for a minute. And maybe you talked about this before, but if you didn't, could you explain it a little bit more?
Sure. No Red Ink is a place where you can go for grammar, reading, where it's, so for example, I have a student right now working on grammar, punctuation. And so it gives them a series of sentences, and they have to make sure the punctuation and grammar is correct. I love this program because you have to get 3 in a row correct. So if the student has an issue on one of them, then they have to get three more correct in order to be able to move to the next level. So it really enforces the skill that they're working on. So that, and the No Red Ink and Newsella, you can go on and get on that site. Parents can do this for free, and you can go on there and work with your student on those sites. You just need to go in and set up with your email.
Jan, and you may have mentioned this before, I'm not sure. Can you talk a little bit about Teachers Pay Teachers?
I absolutely can. I am going to set that up, and I want to share screen so that I can go to that site real quick. And because I would absolutely love to show you that site. And Teachers Pay Teachers.
And while Jan is setting that up, I can let you know that I've put on the chat, if anyone wants to check that out, some of the other resources that Jan mentioned and showed you on the screen before. I wrote those down, so if anybody needs to jot that down.
Okay, so here is Teachers Pay Teachers, and I share this with all my families. This is a great site. This is teachers that put out the materials that they use in school, and they usually have 1 or 2 items that they'll put out for free that you can use. You can go on here and type in, let's say, money, and you can get, if you want to teach your student, we were talking earlier about money and converting dollars to coins, and how much it would cost to go to the store. So you can go on here and you can find projects that you can work on with the students or with your children. Also, if you scroll down, you can put it in by subject. You can also put, if you just want free, the free items that they have out there. But there are so many projects. They've got games on here. They have every subject. They have, it goes up to calculus. So it is loaded with wonderful materials for tutors to use, for parents to use, for students to use. So it's just a great site. Okay.
Thanks, Jan. I love Teachers Pay Teachers. It's one of
Yes,
my favorites. Thank you for that.
absolutely.
And Nicole, did somebody have a question? Along?
Yeah. Jan or Anne, do you know what the difference between IXL and Khan Academy is?
Oh,
Go ahead, Jan.
okay, so Khan Academy is whenever you go on to now Khan Academy has been changing quite a bit. So Khan Academy has where you can go on and you can find the skill that you're going to work on, and then it's going to give you a tutorial, teaches you how to do it, and then it also gives you quite a few problems that you can do so that you can master that skill, and then it continues to give you problems so that you can master the skill. Now with IXL does not have little tutorials on teaching you the skill. It does explain things so the student can follow the steps in order to know how to solve the problem, but it's not at the tutorial level that Khan Academy is. The difference between IXL and Khan Academy, in my opinion, is what the student's preference is. So quite a few things on Khan Academy is free. With IXL, you would want to get a monthly subscription for IXL so that you could use that one. So it's, in my opinion, it has been what does the student enjoy working with more. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Jan.
Can I add one thing about No Red Ink, which just as a parent, if you have a reluctant reader or writer, the way that you onboard a child into that is they get to choose subject areas like Star Wars or what their favorite shows are or whatever. And it is a nice way to get them into working on something if your child's been reluctant to engage in certain learning because, for instance, in our school system, they were very slow to roll out virtual and distance learning. So that's kind of a nice draw, just FYI, as a parent.
Yeah, and they also make it personal. So my student's name is in quite a bit of the passages or the sentences and things like that, and he absolutely loves that. I agree. That was a great point.
Thanks, Jan and Allison. Would anybody else like to unmute themselves and ask a question or just join the conversation?
You can also put any other questions you might have in the chat.
Jan and Allison, since we don't have any more questions right now, would you like to share anything else before we wrap up?
I could talk a little bit about motion regulation if that would help. If you have, especially for some of your younger kids when they're, what we would call is not in the green zone for learning. If anybody who knows the zones of regulation, which I'll be happy to send that on to you, Anna and Nicole, if you want to pass that out to people. It's used in a lot of classroom environments as well as OT environments, where green is go feelings, you're feeling ready and focused, and yellow is when you're a little more, you might be more hyper or excited or less able to focus, and red really is where we have to stop, like a stop sign, and take a break and calm. So that's one tool that we use to help kids know what zone they're in. And blue is when they're sleepy and maybe tired or not motivated as much. And then what might they need to do to energize their bodies, move a little bit. There's a handout that I prepared that I think will go out to everyone on the anatomy of emotions and how that relates to motivation. And really the simple formula is emotions really help energy flow, which helps motivation, right? And when we're talking about emotional regulation, we're trying to get kids sort of down from the red, calm enough into the green in order to be able to focus, to feel like I can do it, and their mind is focused enough for them to access information, right? And Gottman is one person who talks about emotion coaching. And that's really just help the child know they're feeling and have sort of appropriate strategies for how upset or how resistant they might be in the moment. So that could be talking to them about it. Like, what's your yellow activity? When you're feeling yellow, what are the 2 things you can do? Get your body calm and ready. And what's your red activity? What are the things you need to do to move from when you need to stop and take a break in order to then get more calm and focused, all which helps motivation. So I can share the zones of regulation sheet. It's good to have a feelings poster or something like the zones of regulation in your learning environment. Teachers are great about having that. And then that way for younger children, they have something they can point to rather than just having to call up the emotion in a moment.
Allison, if your child is in a, do you ask them like, what zone are you in right now? If you can tell that they're kind of in like maybe a yellow or red zone, how do you?
The
tell
best
us
way
the
to use
practicality of
this,
that?
the best way to use it is to already have it incorporated into your life, of course. So I wouldn't pull out any strategy in the midst of a meltdown, because obviously that's not going to go over well. Everybody's in the red, no mindset, right? When they're angry and upset. So it's better just to have it on their desk or on the fridge. Start talking about red, yellow, and green throughout the week, so that when the moment comes up, you can be like, I wonder what you are. I wonder. To use I wonder statements. I wonder if you could look and pick, or I wonder. And if they can't, they're a yellow or they're really in a red and they're like, no, I don't want to. Later, when they're not upset, you would be like, do you think that was a red? Could I ask you that question? You know, you want them to get curious about their mind and their emotions, right? And if they reject the chart in that moment, it's probably because they're in that zone. They will come back to it if you come back to it in kind of a benign, not in the moment time, right? In a manner that's more appealing. Yeah, so you do ask them, but if they reject it, don't worry. You'll get another chance.
So if they're in a red, even if they don't say, I'm feeling like I'm in a red, is it just time to disengage?
Yes, that's when it's, I always say the higher they are, the fewer words and the fewer emotions we want to display, which of course is difficult, but yeah, disengage, get quiet, get low and slow with your talking, pull back.
That's super helpful. Thank you, Allison, for that.
Sure.
All right. Anybody else have a final thought or a question as we wrap up? One mom says, my 6th grader is more than capable, but is completely unmotivated, which is so atypical. He hates school now in the distance learning environment. His teachers are flexible, but he still needs to complete the work. They are receiving grades, not pass fail. He just wants to play video games and read, which we try to use as rewards. These aren't helping. Any suggestions? Take a break for a few days. So Jan, I'll start with you and then go on to Allison. Have you ever had a student like this? And how have you dealt with it?
Yes, I have had several students like this. So you are definitely not alone in this situation. And sometimes it does, take a day or take, a day to regroup. But what I have tried in the past is coming up with, and something we have already discussed a little bit earlier, is something that interests the student. And whenever we find something that interests the student, then we can take and build on that interest level. So whatever subject that my particular student was interested in, I took that subject, and my particular student was interested in science. So what we did was we took that subject and we found a project that interests the student, and we made that into a science project, and we were able to incorporate all the other subjects into that science project. And so getting him a little bit more interested in doing something that he likes to do, and then be able to branch into the other subjects. And then sometimes that gets them back into that motivation of, oh, wow, that was really cool. Look at what I have made in this presentation that I was able to do. And they start feeling so proud of themselves. And sometimes that will get them started. And then sometimes I also, might need to start off, really slow on something. But again, also going in the same direction of finding something that does interest them. If it's a book or if it's a subject, starting there and then working into other subjects. As they build confidence and they are proud of themselves, they start to feel a little bit more motivated to do some of these other subjects.
Thanks, Jan. Allison.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts about this as a parent and as a therapist helping families. And I just want to say that we're all in this, and there's no real right or wrong, but we're all kind of dealing with the battle of the screens. And so a couple things is, one, just sort of acknowledge and validate that it is May and that we are in really unique circumstances, to just kind of, join with them in that. Yes, this is hard. This is really hard on you. I think a lot of kids are demotivated by the lack of personal social contact they're having. I mean, they're not seeing their friends. Sixth graders may love their families, but they really should be at school with their friends and their teachers, kind of developing their identity in a different way, right? So I think if there's ways to amp that up, that in ways that are healthy and appropriate, to make sure they're having enough social time. I'm hearing from a lot of kids that I work with that they're really down because they're not able to see their friends in a normal way. I think the screen battle is really hard, but at the same time, as much as you can, having screens just not be an option during certain school hours, at least, without being too rigid about that, because I think they're always going to choose screens over other things because of how compelling screens are. And that can become a rut in itself, the amount of screen time use. So I'm not saying don't use screens at all, but is there a way just to make that not an option during those school hours or during learning time? And then sometimes I think you just really have to change it up. Things like Wacky Wednesday. Okay, we're doing a totally different school day today. We're not going to do a traditional learning day, and we're going to do outdoor learning, or, like Freaky Fridays. If you get your work done by this time, then you can kind of go crazy on screen time, to make it feel like it's almost their idea or their adventure, their endeavor, even if it is our idea. We're just making it more appealing to them. So it's hard, though. It's really hard. I understand.
Thanks, Allison. And then Amanda, I saw that you posted something. Did you want to share that?
Oh, hi, Ann and everyone. This is something that I use in my class, the whiteboard messages, and I use it each day. For example, this past Monday, I used Moody Monday, but I changed it. You can change it around to say, you can choose to be in a good mood. And then the question for my students, they had to say, what is something that can put you in a good mood? So each day is something different. Tuesday, I did like Tasty Tuesday. What is your favorite food? Wednesday, I can't remember for Wednesday. I'll do Friday. Fabulous Friday. What is something that was fabulous that someone told you that you did an awesome job with? So it's a good way that they can express themselves and they can see things in themselves, something positive. So I use that, and students love the whiteboard. And I just started that last week, so I'm gonna start using that during my tutoring sessions this upcoming week, because I just found the resource last week. So, and I just wanted to share also for reading, readworks.org. The student they can read the passages, or the passages can be read to them also. So they have it where they can read the passage, or the passage can be read.
Great. Amanda, thank you so much. And thanks for
You're
working
welcome.
with our kids too. And Jenna, I think you had something to contribute as well, some things that you do with your students as a tutor.
I think you might be talking with me, but one thing that has helped my 7th grader is he really misses his interaction with his friends. So of his own accord, he and his buddies decided that they would meet together once or twice a week and have a cooking session. It was just something that they have kind of developed as an interest. And it's been really fun, as they've done something as simple as Rice Krispie treats to making homemade ravioli pasta, which actually blew my mind and was quite tasty. But it just shows the development that they're making from when they started to where they are now. And it's great because he gets that social interaction, and they kind of joke around while they're doing it, and they show off what they're doing, and then they send pictures back and forth about the finished product. And he gets that sense of connection filled, while the rest of us get to enjoy all the yummy things he's made, period. Another thing, and this might be kind of what people's comfort level is, but one thing that we've done as a family is we've done field trip Fridays. And basically it's just exploring trails in our area. And so we have kind of gone out more as a family just to get outside and outdoors and explore a new trail and spend the day doing that, taking a picnic out and or whatever when the weather's good. And that's been really helpful, just to kind of create a break in our routine and connect as a family, and also appreciate this beautiful area that we live in.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Jenna. I noticed that with my son. My youngest son is a senior in high school, and I hear him talking to his friends a lot at night, and I thought they were on video games, but he said, no, I have a Zoom call with all my friends every night at 9 o'clock. And I just thought that was so great that he's found a way to connect with all of his friends, even though they can't see each other. So thank you, everybody, for your suggestions, parents, Jan, Allison. It was great to hear from everybody today. I hope you found this helpful. And on Wednesday, we have a session, a webinar with Allison and 3 other psychologists on how to reintegrate your kids from isolation back into seeing their friends, even if it's just a little bit first, how to have those discussions, and then what to do with our kids over the summer now that many camps have been canceled. So we'll send that out to you. It's Wednesday at 12:15 to 1, a lunch and learn. I hope you can join. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.